John, under hypnosis, you said there was going to be a second coming. Hey guys, welcome back. It's coffee time with John. I had a comment that came in on the channel that I wanted to respond directly to because it actually is just taking my own words from my regression and pushing them back towards me and asking for an explanation. So I want to make sure I do this. So she said in a book he was reading, which I don't promote, she says, "Can you explain this?" Now this is the regressionist and myself talking while I'm under hypnosis. She said, "Will Jesus return in the physical? Will we have a second coming of Christ?" And I said, "He's returned to the consciousness already, and he's returning in the physical to prove it. And that I'm the forerunner, I'm the beacon of his return." And she said, "He is," I said, "Jeshua, he is the physical manifestation of God." Now, you can take this in many different ways. But I can tell you that I have wrestled with this myself for over 20 years. And I have come to a lot of very big understandings of this exact thing because this was one of the things that made me really want to run away from all this stuff because I really had to wrestle with this. Now notice, it says it right in there. It says, he's returned to the consciousness already. The people are already awakening, and you could see people awakening to their own divinity. And that's a part of the process. You know, Jeshua, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, they were all people who reached that consciousness level of understanding their divinity. And in coming to that place of understanding their divinity, within the oneness of God, that is now happening in the world. I see this every day with people I talk to who are coming into their next level of their divinity. So the people would call it the Christ consciousness. I don't like the word Christ because it means anointed one. It means it's someone who's been separated from or set apart from. I believe it's just an awareness, a consciousness. We're aware of our divinity. And so I think it's already come to the consciousness. And then he says he's returning in the physical to prove it. Now, if you go on my channel, you will very quickly find a video I made called I Took a Picture of Jesus. He has been showing up physically in the world for decades. People are seeing him. I have private sessions every day where people show up and they say, "Well, I saw him." Or they send me pictures with his face in them. And they send me all these stories and pictures and things where they've seen him in the physical. That does not mean he's going to show up wearing a set of jeans and a T-shirt, which, interestingly enough, he did for me in a show one time. I was literally standing there performing, and we both had swords in our hand, and we had a whole sequence. We go, "For God," and we raise our sword to the sky. And this one day, instead of looking up like I normally did, I looked out. And Jeshua was sitting in the crowd, and he smiled and he nodded. And he was wearing actually, he was wearing one of those, it was like a long sleeve T-shirt, but it had the different colored sleeves, like a baseball kind of style shirt, and jeans. And when I turned to look back again, he was gone. And so he's already returned to the physical. He's already running around, but it's not the literal second coming. It's the awareness. It's the veil being thinner. And so he's been showing up in the physical. People have been seeing him. Nick Bunick, the guy who remembered being the Apostle Paul, claimed that he's seen him several times. Now here's the part where it gets really weird. I am the forerunner. I'm the beacon for his return. This was the part that really messed with my head because I didn't want to be the ego about this. I didn't want to get be an out of balanced ego about this. I was like, what is this? So over the course of the years, I've discovered very quickly, a forerunner is not something that is big and esoteric. John of old was a forerunner for Jeshua. He would run ahead and prepare housing and lodging and all these things. So it's like to be a forerunner is someone who is preparing the consciousness. And I believe there's a lot of people who are forerunners, who are preparing the consciousness of humanity. I mean, you go online right now, you'll find amazing people shedding amazing stories. Alex Ferrari of Next Level Soul. You talk to him, there's a feeling about him, and that he is opening the minds of people to greater concepts. Louisa from Passion Harvest. You talk to her, you can feel her presence. Kim Carey, Intuitive You. You can feel the love within that person, right? That's the forerunner of a consciousness raising experience. And then it says, I'm the beacon for his return. This is something that I do still struggle with, because the way it was described in the regression is that there's like multiple possibilities. Imagine, we live in a universe that has multiple outcomes. And within all those multiple outcomes, you leave breadcrumbs behind so you know which one to come back to. And this is the way it was kind of described to me, was that something gets left behind so you know how to come back. Now, this goes back to that other story in the book of John. Peter says, what of him? And he says, if I want him to stay until I come, what's that to you? I'm talking to you. And from that point on, the disciples thought that John would not die. And in reality, I have come to believe that some aspect of John of old has been continually reincarnating and staying in this place as like the breadcrumb, to know that we're raising the consciousness of this reality. And so for the return, right? And so in the process of this, meaning the return, not meaning that he's coming to us, I think we're going to them. I think we're going to Buddha and Krishna and Jeshua, and I think we are raising our consciousness up to that level. And I think it's happening. I think we're in the midst of it right now. I can't tell you the difference between when I used to speak 20 years ago till now. Back then, everyone was so superficial and so into the reincarnation aspect that they weren't actually paying attention to their own divinity or what I was teaching. That's why I left the work for 10 years. When I've come back now, it's amazing to see the difference in humanity. It's amazing to see the difference in humanity. And then, so the concept of a beacon for return, people like to think of the word beacon as a bright light. I don't think it's necessarily a bright light as much as it is a tracking cookie, if it were. And when I had one of my near-death experiences, I went to the other side, and I was literally told, "You're not supposed to be here yet," and was pushed right back into my body before I had a chance to do anything else. So I'm wondering if I've just been continually, or John of old, has been continually pushed back. And I delineate that very specifically because I don't know whether I am the one soul of John of old, or whether I just have memories of the one soul of John of old, or whether there's 1,000 John of olds. I don't know how reincarnation works, and I don't really care how reincarnation works. All I know is that it only matters what I am doing in the moment. And the only thing that I'm doing in the moment is sharing my past life memories and the teachings and the things that I've learned from them that have worked so well for me in my life. And so that's why I'm doing the things I'm doing, not because of some big, crazy story of the second coming of Jesus arriving on a hill and walking into the west gate of Jerusalem, or the east gate of Jerusalem, I think it is. And then the last line, she says, and he is, and I say Jeshua, the physical manifestation of God, right? I think we're all the physical manifestation of God, but he is the one who completely lived it and was aware of it, that I knew, right? But I think Buddha was too, as was Krishna, as was all the enlightened avatars of old, right? I think that the concept of being a physical manifestation of God is being love fully. You watch my live stream. It's called the Live Loving live stream. It's literally live loving Be love. You know, I don't think it's a mistake that he was known as John the Beloved, because it's meant you be love. Just be love. And when you become love and you live into love, then you are the physical manifestation of God. The world that you live in, if you're walking through life loving, you are delivering love to God. You are the physical manifestation of God. And so this might sound very esoteric, but I've had 20 years to go over this, and 20 years to dive into this, and 20 years of readings on this, and 20 years of living my life with this. And my answer is that it's not a big metaphysical Christian sort of second coming thing that's happening in this passage. It's a showing of the awakening of humanity is what this is. And what I am doing in my life is truly forerunning this awakening of humanity. But I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people who are doing exactly that. And it's a matter of getting out of all of the old dogmatic beliefs of, Christ coming and landing in Jerusalem and going through the East Gate. The East Gate's gone. It's been stoned up a long time ago. It's like there's so many things that are from 2,000 years ago, stories-wise, that have become these big, giant, magical, mystical, miracle sort of stories. And it's far more beautiful than that. It's far more simple than that. And when I look at this thing here, my own belief is you could be a forerunner just by literally raising your own consciousness. You could be a beacon just by raising your own consciousness. Everybody can be exactly those things. And I think it's important. I think it's important that we do. So when I look at this, if I was to let my ego get out of balance with this comment, I would be a mess. I'd be an absolute mess. But when I look at it from the perspective of where I'm coming from, to me, it's just talking about the rise in humanity towards a greater consciousness, and that it's a matter of doing our best to get there. And the people who are the ones who are doing their best to get there will eventually become examples for others. And that is the beacon for the return of that level of consciousness. And as I said, Jeshua is the physical manifestation of God. But to John of old, he was. You got to remember, when this was being said, I'm under hypnosis as John of old, right? This is John of old talking. This is not John of new talking, right? But John of old, you have to remember, a lot of his beliefs are coming from 2,000 years ago. So when I look at it now, it's a very different experience. It's a very different experience. But I hope that answers your question. I hope that gives you an insight to this that I have not shared before. Whenever you read a book and whenever you read my regression, understand that there are more nuances to that regression, because that was the very first regression. I've been in and out of that life many times since then, and I have a much better understanding now than I ever have. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. The John of New channel is solely funded by your generous donations and purchases of private readings and merchandise. To help out, go to johnofnew.com or use the donation link in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.